All right. So hello, everybody. We're here to talk about how to AI is affecting the world of records management. So, Oday, if you can go into the next slide, we can talk about the agenda. So this is a bit of an agenda that we're going to be going through today. We encourage everybody to participate. Oday and I, we're easygoing people. We encourage the use of the chat. So if I'm presenting, Oday will be managing the chat, and vice versa. If he's presenting, I'll be the one managing the chat. Give us our comments, questions, anything like that. We do have a dedicated question and answer session at the very end. But at any given point, if there's something very pressing, we encourage you to participate. All right. So again, we're going to be doing a little bit of introductions. We're going to be talking about real concept of AI, what the business case for AI is, where it's heading, and some practical steps to your day-to-day activities. All right. Thank you, Oday. If you can move on to the next slide. As Colin and John mentioned, my name is David Garzon. I am the sales director for state, local government, and commercial here at Colabware. I come with roughly 16 years of experience in information management. When I first started doing this, AI wasn't necessarily a thing in records and information management. And I'm glad that I've been in this industry long enough now to see the first few seeds and very excited about the future when it comes to artificial intelligence and machine learning. As part of our our presenters as well is Oday. So if you want to do a quick intro of yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Yeah, my name is Oday Brahem. I'm a solutions architect at Colabware. I've been with Colabware for about 5 years now. I've worked across several different roles, working across customer success, the engineering team, working now with sales and customer success. And primarily my role is to help understand the business requirements of organizations and to help draw vision forward. With things like artificial intelligence now around the corner and all the big buzz in the news, one of the things I've been really focused on recently is sharing that understanding of what it is, how it applies to you, and hopefully this presentation today will deliver that. Without further ado, let's get started. So what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is the ability for a machine to perform common tasks that are normally associated with intelligent beings, whether that is being able to learn or make decisions on those learnings. We all have different understandings of artificial intelligence and its manifestations. We have cute little robots like Wall-E. And some of us have a bit more of a grim view on that. You have our final Terminator there. And of course, we don't want to forget good old Clippy. So again, there's been a lot of manifestations of machines, and the face of the machine and the face of artificial intelligence is tied to a lot of that. And but going back to it and speaking out in sum, what is it today? It's really at its foundation, it's the algorithms that are designed to teach these machines to learn and to make these decisions. Now, what does that mean? So when we talk about being able to learn, so we talk about machine learning. So what is machine learning? Machine learning is the ability for artificial intelligence to take data and being able to generate data models. So the different data sets that we are able to absorb into the AI, being able to execute algorithms on those data models. So getting that new data, being able to extract other data to enrich it through it or predict based on that. Now, machine learning in itself is broken down into 3 different areas. We're going to cover a few of those today. Now, what is machine learning? You're going to hear a lot of supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. Supervised learning, it's a way for computers to learn from labeled data that you already have and make predictions on that. So, for example, it can predict if a record is relevant or not. It can identify whether, for example, if you had a bunch of invoices, whether is this an invoice, is this not an invoice? So a lot of the yes, no decisions there. And then you have what's called unsupervised learning. Unsupervised learning is a way to find patterns in unlabeled data. So if you had a bunch of invoices right now, what kind of things can you identify from them? So if you see certain patterns, like, oh, there's this vendor name, I'm seeing it in a lot of places. That's going to be a piece of data that was going to be enriched into your data set. Other patterns that could be identified could be anything from whether is this a sensitive, is this not, and being able to you know identify what makes those things sensitive. That's definitely a form of, I'd say, more supervised learning in this case. And then we have reinforcement learning, which is that combination of both. So in this case, it's computers are learning from the feedback. So uh, once the machines are able to identify certain things, well, once we step in, we add that extra step saying, yes, you're right, no, you're wrong. It's able to better refine its ability to predict things. So, for example, in the case of a bunch of invoices, it can predict maybe which vendors are willing to provide additional discounts based off previous invoices. And all in all, in the end of the day, it's just different forms of learning, and each one of them will have different applications. Um, when you see AI applied, you'll see that it's going to be a combination of these ways of learning that is being applied. To give you a few examples, right now we have, for example, this is a press release from Colabware. And when you look at this press release, over to your right, you're going to notice that there are what says sentiment. So whether this is objective or subjective. The sentiment would be one of those supervised/unsupervised forms of learning. And then you'll notice also it's capturing the entities. So if I pull up a file, I want to know certain things about it. Real quickly here, I can tell this is relating to Colabware. I can see some of the key entities involved here relating this document. So whoever was maybe the compliance director who was involved there, their name showed up. And it's also, if you notice, there's a little icon next to some of these people. So it's able to say, well, Doug's a person, Colabware seems to be an organization, and it shows US shows a little globe there showing as a country. So as you can tell there, being able to identify those kind of things, those come into the enrichment side of things. Once this piece of data, it could be it could be a document for when you see it from the file name, you don't really know what it is, but once you look into these, if you look quick view on the entities, you can probably tell what this might be about. And then there's the keywords that come in from it as well. Again, this is all being picked up and understood by supervised and unsupervised machine learning. Further to that, so yeah, like I said here, I was kind of going over, yeah, you can see the different types. But then there's more than that, right? So of course, there's the ability to extract things out of text, but what happens when you have something like a picture? So in a picture, you can do a combination of things. So through optical character recognition, you're noticing some of the text there. So the presentation was on M1218, the modernization of information systems, that was able to get picked up. However, if you look, there's something called image keywords there. And it was able to identify that, hey, there's 5 people in this room with 99% certainty. It sees a TV monitor, it sees 3 cups. And these kind of pieces of information, you can imagine when you're doing an FOI request or a search, this could be pretty helpful, especially when you have something that was maybe scanned without necessarily, without being OCR'd already, or any sort of other use case where, you're looking for a certain thing, but you might not necessarily have text associated with it. This extends further. So the same applications, again, we can do on text, we can also do on pictures, but we can also do this on audio and video. So let's say you had an audio video file. One of the things that machine learning and AI can allow you to do is it allow you to be able to identify the different entities in the conversation. So we have couple of voices here speaking. So being able to see those two people in there and being identified who's speaking when. This is again comes down to the FOI request. If I got a search regarding a certain person, you can not only find content related to it, but also any meetings and what role they played in those meetings. You'll be able to see that. And definitely, the applications go on and on and on. We see applications in our everyday, self-driving cars. You hear about those a lot. That's just another form manifestation of artificial intelligence, doing a lot of stuff we did before. It's just doing it for more, being able to serve this use case, which is being able to navigate around traffic. Again, re-summarizing, what is artificial intelligence? Again, like we said, it's the ability for machines to carry out things that we normally associate with intelligent beings, whether that is being able to learn decisions. And we talked a little bit about the application earlier. What I really think is really important here and what we're all here for today is let's hear about the business case for applying artificial intelligence to records management. Over to you, David.
Okay, thank you, Oday. All right, so what is the business case on artificial intelligence to record managers? So if you go up to the next slide, please, Oday. Wonderful. So I want to take a little bit of a higher level view. Let's call it a 50,000 foot view for our organization. And it all really comes down to each person has a different mission depending on the role that they have within the organizations that we're in. In the case of record managers, we are the stewards of the organization that are tasked with preserving knowledge and mitigating risk through the information that we collect. Likewise, information technology (IT) has a different mission. Their core business function is to make sure that they're ensuring security, that systems are all, there's green lights in all of their systems, that there's continuity of those systems, and that there's no interruptions. If our systems in this day and age go down, that means dollars, that means loss of revenue, and it's a very complicated set of outcomes. So the idea of IT is that, again, their mission is to make sure that all systems, our infrastructure is sound and that all systems are running. And then from the people that we report to, what's important to them? What is their mission in our organization? And depending on whether you're in the public sector or in the private sector, they have, a little bit different. But in the grand scale of things, in the government sector, you could say that it's the delivery of services to the constituents, right? People, and my guess is that maybe some of you playing in this particular arena, and it's all about the service to the people of our or the people in our counties, or whether it's the state, or whether it's even our municipalities. We have a duty to deliver services to them. Whereas in the private sector, it's a little bit different, right? It's all about growth. In the capitalist economy that we are all in, the main goal of any executive is to try and increase revenue and drive growth. So how does AI and how does these missions get affected by these newer technologies? So Oday, if you can move on to the next slide. So let's start with record managers, because I'm guessing most of you are, this is your day-to-day. AI, ties into our mission through automation. And the biggest concept that I want to bring here for everyone is the fact that we've been collecting information since the very early stages of, companies. It used to be very manual. It used to be something I could, very tangible as well. And so I can get my hands on paper and I can, store it and add, descriptors to our boxes and so on and so forth. But as we enter the digital age, information started growing at a pace that has exponentially grown over time. And so the biggest challenge that we, as we talk to record managers, and feel free to chime in on the chat on this, but the biggest challenge is the fact that information is growing so rapidly. And with the introduction of collaboration platforms such as Microsoft 365 or Google Workspaces, the information is not only growing rapidly, but it's also being placed in a lot of different, dare I say, silos. And so, this being the background, how do we ensure that we protect information of our organizations if we don't have full visibility? If it's growing so fast, how can I catch up to the rate of information creation? And in that is done via, again, automation. Do a little bit more with less. Chances are that record managers, or most of you, the record management department is a team of one or maybe two people. That's typically the case. It's not a vast number of people doing records. And so, since we have limited resources, AI provides that opportunity for us to do a little bit more in our day-to-day jobs. Now, from an IT perspective, how does the AI, and specifically AI within record management, affect their mission? And I bet that most of you would never have thought that record management, even though it works as a level of insurance to our communities, or to our organizations, um, record management also serves as a security screen. And AI, it gives us that ability. I'll go into a little bit more detail as to what this means, but the idea, oh, sorry, Oday, just before you get there. The idea is that our IT folks in our organizations can leverage record management software as an added layer to security to prevent us from falling into disclosures, ransomware, and so on and so forth. So I'll expand a little bit later on that. And last but not least is executive management. How is AI affected, and specifically, again, record management AI affecting the mission of the executives? And what we see is that now that we have this large data sets, the ability to process these large quantities of information can yield insights into day-to-day activities. The ability to predict outcomes becomes a little bit easier because we're leveraging, again, large data sets and quick processing times, which, in our time prior to AI being around, it was a very manual task, right? You had to task people to go through large amounts of data in order to make predictions or find patterns in our organizations. Oday, if you don't mind. Thank you. All right. So let's talk again about record management. And it's all about automation and transparency. And I'll also mention transparency has even a stronger meaning when we're talking in the public sector. The reason being is that, in my opinion, the biggest mission of any public sector body is to make sure that through record management there's transparency of operations. Everyone knows about FOIA requests. We all know that ultimately we hold our the people in charge of our well, again, the municipalities or the states, that they keep good records, and that they're acting in the face of in the well-being of all of the constituencies. So how do we apply AI in records management? The first thing is classification and categorization. So again, taking that concept of information sprawl, in exponential growth, we can apply auto classification and auto categorization to all of our data assets. We are able to then start differentiating between what is a formal record for those that are classically trained, and what is content, and maybe even ROT, right? Redundant, obsolete, and transitory or trivial data, right? And so the aim here is to reduce manual effort and biases and mistakes, right? Humans, we're prone to always make mistakes. And the idea is that through an AI supported model, we can train the machine to make very clear decisions as to what falls under which categories, and again, help us wrap our arms around our organization's data. This model will use both, rules-based or supervised learning. Now, going a step further, it's all about data enrichment and discovery. So as Oday alluded to in the past, now before we always were very reliant on metadata. And for those that know a little bit about Colabware and know our site, I encourage you to look into metadata being a practice of the past. There's a blog post on that, and essentially what we're bringing to the table through AI is adding a little bit more context. So before we had to have metadata, we had to have naming conventions in order to determine what a piece of content was all about. Now through AI, even if we don't have that metadata and if we don't have those naming conventions, the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, are always in the content. And so through OCR, keyword extraction, and entity extraction, we're able to glean out a little bit more information about the data that we have, whether it's, again, that data that we or had tons of metadata with, or the ones that we didn't have and was misplaced, misfiled. Furthermore, we can look for patterns. Again, this is all about going a step beyond. It's not only about finding or getting all this information, but then can I see information that fits or that is similar to what I'm looking for? And I'll show an example in short order here as to what this means. But we can look for similarities because the machine has all the information at its disposal, and you can then say it, okay, find me information that is similar to the query that I just placed. So it's all, again, finding information rather quickly and finding those patterns. Oday, if you don't mind. Wonderful. All right, so IT. I talked about a little bit of security and how that ties in. So again, because we're identifying patterns through our AI models, we can take an approach, and I'll use this as an example. I hope that most of you know what a phishing email is and what it potentially looks like. And most of our organizations, cybersecurity and breaches are a real problem. IT is constantly on the lookout for making sure that there's no gaps in our infrastructure where people can get in and do some damage. And Record Manager can aid that as well. In this particular example with phishing emails, if I receive an email that it looks a little suspicious, I'm able to flag it and say that this email is potentially an entry point for a breach and put an organization at risk. The moment I flag this information through an AI model, I can actually tell the machine for look for patterns or similar emails across the organization that could be sponged directly from our email boxes ahead of any potential breaks. So this is again from an IT perspective, for those of you that are working in tandem with IT in your records department. I challenge you to bring this up to the table and how AI can help you identify malicious intents in phishing emails or even bad actors within organizations. AI again can process a lot of data in a short period of time and can identify those patterns so you can be more secure. And then another area where AI can help is reduce administration. Again, through the model of auto-categorization and classification, we're going to reduce human interaction, and therefore they'll have less support calls and less time being spent in those type of tasks. Last but not least, our executive teams, right? And so it's all about growth. It's all about delivery of the services. So what AI can bring to the table is being able to connect the dots. Again, we're looking for patterns. We're looking for insights. So based on new knowledge. So you can have an AI assisted record management program that can then start doing a lot of that enrichment and then do some predictions based on the data itself. You can, there was an example that I read not long ago where a company saved millions of dollars by looking at data on their cooling systems. This is a large grocer or a large grocery chain rather in the US that applied AI to look at how their cooling refrigerator systems were working, and they found ways to actually reduce costs related to maintenance through, again, these predictive models. As another example of that is, as we have it here, is similar proposal responses for RFPs, right? So people in sales, like people like me, you don't want to have to reinvent the wheels. You want to look for specific patterns. I receive many RFPs that have similar questions, so I can again find similar responses through an AI assisted record management program. So it's all about prediction is for them in operational data to, again, save dollars or increase revenues. Okay, moving on. So in this particular example here, this screen grab, what we were doing here is what we call a more like this feature. But again, it's all about similarities and patterns that we're finding through AI. So the story here is that I placed a query within our platform, and I was able to get a piece of content that was really meaningful. But beyond that, I needed to find more content across the organization that was very similar to that original document that I found. So in this particular AI assisted model, the more like this feature is goes in and crawls through all of the content that I have visibility into, and it brings me back a set of results that have similar content to my initial query. So this becomes really helpful in e-discovery scenarios, for example, where we're tasked with collecting a lot of data due to litigation, and I can find a particular term and then expand it even further through the AI model to find similar content. All right, moving on. Last but not least, part of any business use is that we want to see return of investment. Anytime our executives, anytime that our organizations put money forward to go and get new technology, in this particular case AI, they want to see a return of investment. So I won't go into the details of this particular slide, but the idea is here that we are saving time through auto categorization and auto content filing in the day-to-day work of all of our knowledge workers, our end users. So the less time that there's spending finding information or categorizing information will result in time savings, and those time savings can relate into productivity, and therefore we can see a tangible return on the investment that we made in AI assisted models or AI solutions out there in the workplace. And with that, Oday, off to you.
Thank you, David. All right, so next up, we're going to talk about what is the future of artificial intelligence in records management. Of course, we talked about AI. David talked about some of the business cases, and going into it, it's something that's going to be coming up for a lot of us here. So what does that mean? So first of all, there's going to be two directions where artificial intelligence is going to be, you're going to see it being leveraged. First of all, it's going to be on the data enrichment side. So developing layers of information from your existing data, being able to tag that data with helpful information to give context into it, being able to aid your discovery and search process by, so when you have enriched data, it's a lot more easier to find content within context, as we showed earlier when we were talking about artificial intelligence and how you can use it to whether detect objects and images, whether we're able to identify the different speakers in a meeting. All those kind of capabilities, of course, really tie into the data enrichment side and ties into being able to help with your e-discovery and FYA process. The other side of things, and this is one that's pretty exciting. I think some of you have probably heard about ChatGPT, and everybody's using it right now, the new famous virtual assistant that everyone's been trying to think about, hey, how can this help me? Well, just as you familiar, virtual assistants are tools. They have the ability to query large sums of data and knowledge. Again, we're generating so much data and knowledge nowadays. We having a machine to help pull that all in together is amazing. But it also goes a step beyond that. It goes to the ability to execute basic actions. So being able to, again, you give it a question, it answers you, but also, like David mentioned earlier, from the security side, hey, you got hit with a phishing email. It's probably a good decision to destroy that email from everybody else's inbox to make sure nobody else is impacted by that. So this is something where, when we talked about earlier, we talked about unsupervised learning, where machine learning can detect a pattern. Well, a phishing attack might be identified because of a certain pattern of things. And then what'll happen is it's going to go to that next step, which is going to be being able to make a decision, which is being able to destroy that from everyone else's inbox. Of course, we want to be more practical in terms of what does that mean particularly. So what are some of the practical steps that we can do today for applying artificial intelligence to records management? With that, it's going to be making sure we're aligning the artificial intelligence with our own records management missions, our own compliance needs, making sure that that's all aligned. Being able to identify what are some high value targets, what are some high value areas that where it can play a role, being able to identify that in the programs, being able to identify any sort of bias, any sort of challenges, being able to see that machines don't think like us, they can think a bit more black and white about things. So being able to take away and help the machine better refine what it's doing, it's very important. But then that's just from the policy side and being able to align things. There's the other aspect of things is when you're talking about working with artificial intelligence, data is very important. So being able to take the information that you have and being able to what's called a data lake. So what is a data lake? It's being able to tear down any sort of specific system silos. In the end of the day, it's all data. Being able to put that data in a kind of flat architecture where you see all your data, see all the descriptors of that data. So any sort of barriers between different content sources, that's no longer a thing. And then being able to protect and secure that data and make sure you're meeting compliance when you're pulling this data so that you can allow the artificial intelligence to build models over it. This comes in as a new responsibility in a way. You're going to have your organizations coming in trying to leverage these kind of technologies. Well, we got to think about, okay, well, how are they doing it? What are they doing in terms of being able to bring data? Is there data that they shouldn't be bringing into it? That kind of thing. Things to think about for sure. But that's definitely what the definite implementation is going to look like. It's going to be really getting that data lake set up and building those policies around it. Those are going to be a big theme of what we'll see organizations doing. Employing machine learning. So to deploy it, you're going to need to start figuring out which data sets you want to be working with. There's going to be again, targeting, figuring out, hey, is this appropriate for using for machine learning? Is it not? What's the business value? Is this a high value target for what we're trying to do? You might want to tag that data set for advanced learning, whether using existing metadata values or using other formats. When it comes to technologies you're going to be leveraging, you definitely want to look at things that are easy to configure, easy to set up. You're gonna, as you're testing out data sets, you don't want a complicated tool when you're looking at how to configure and set up for using machine learning and AI. And then just looking at some of the basic models. So again, we talked about there's different machine learning models that can be leveraged to leverage AI. So you may be taking a sample data set, running that basic model at its core without any tool or anything, just seeing, okay, what are some of the test results? Does it, for example, have the ability to identify certain attributes of invoices, like the vendor, stuff like that? Could it figure that out? Great, this is a good use case. Maybe test out that use case before going in and investing into a bunch of tools to do organization-wide rollout. We're also got in terms of classification and categorization. So what does that look like? So if we're going to leverage it in that sense, David mentioned earlier, that's one of the areas that records managers could help leverage artificial intelligence. So what does that look like? Making sure, again, you got to have easy, identifiable, trainable data. So starting off maybe something like that as a starting point and seeing how your AI is being leveraged, how helpful has it been. So yeah, a good example is forms, contracts. But then eventually you want to expand to more complex data. What are some of the pieces of data that's been traditionally harder to classify and categorize? How does that look like? And then from the other front is, which is really important for a lot of people are talking about this right now, sensitive data detection. Hey, are your employees uploading documents with SIN numbers in them? Are there credit card numbers that you need to be that are being put up there? Well, that's definitely something you might not want to have stored internally as an organization for one reason or the other. So in that case, are the appropriate people being notified? Hey, there's a certain type of file. It's a sensitive file. It shouldn't be being stored in the finances team SharePoint. Maybe you shouldn't be uploading someone's personal information in there, and then notifying the right people. Maybe changing the security profile on that document automatically as a result of that. So again, that's AI making the decisions. So that's one of the areas also that you're going to see it being applied. Now, with all that being said, there's a lot of changes, a lot of stuff that's coming around that corner. How does that impact, the records manager of tomorrow? And this is where I want to talk about the AI enhanced records manager. How does it impact your role? I'm been active on social media recently. I noticed a lot of questions being asked is how can I leverage ChatGPT in records management? How can I do this? Is it here to replace certain roles? And I think the general consensus right now, and it seems to make sense, is AI is not here to replace records managers or a lot of roles out there in the market. It's really there to enhance the role. Uh, an AI enhanced records manager is what you want to be. And what does that mean? You have the ability to leverage the power of AI to help improve efficiency, accuracy, compliance. Again, you have to deal with more data than ever. So the compliance aspect is always growing. So there's always going to be a need to ensure your organization is staying on top of that. Being able to stay current with the advancements that are happening and improving skills and knowledge around that. And again, like we're saying, instead of replacing record manager, AI will empower you to take your role to that next level by allowing you to govern the content at the same rate it's scaling. Again, your content's growing really fast. You have this new technology that can leverage to help uh, manage that exponential growth and make sure compliance is still being met. With that, I want to leave you with some questions to be thinking about. These some of the things that I think you should be asking your organization. What measures are you putting in place to ensure data privacy, security, compliance with laws and regulations as you're implementing these AI technologies? The AI drive might be coming in from an executive IT layer. If you're feeling like the compliance needs are not being thought about, that's something we want to ask them. Hey, what are we doing about this? How are they going to integrate with existing systems and workflows? What kind of resources are going to be allocated? If we just start rolling out all these AI program, pulling all the organization's data, who's managing that? Who's overseeing this kind of thing? But then who's responsible for the governance of the AI system itself? So it's when you're generating data from it. Well, that data has also got its own maybe compliance requirements around retention and stuff, and you want to make sure that that's being met. So again, just some questions to think about. Be happy to chat about this and talk about this more. We're going to open up the chat for anyone to ask any questions and thoughts, share their thoughts around this. And without further ado, just one last slide. We want to say Alan Turing famously said, "A computer deserved to be called intelligent if it could deceive a human into believing that it was human." We're at that stage now. This is something that we are being deceived into it. I've seen in academia, people are submitting papers and they're completely AI generated, and people are marking them. People are doing cover letters with this. There's a lot of stuff coming out right now, so we're definitely at this stage right now. The machine is definitely intelligent, but how we leverage it and how we take advantage of it, and then again how do we put it into practice? It's going to be very important, and you look forward to hearing your thoughts on how you're taking leadership in this. And hopefully today's presentation was some good insight into where we see things. And thank you everyone for being here today. Can open up to questions.
Wonderful.
Okay, I get it. Thanks, guys, for doing this presentation. It was awesome. I think there's a mechanism where folks can get a hold of you. I believe you had it on our website. That if you have any follow-up questions, I saw a couple things in the chat. I hope those were all addressed. But if anybody has any other questions that they want to unmute and ask these gentlemen while they're here, that's great. If you want to save it for the chat, you can put it in there as well.
I'm gonna follow up to one of my chat questions.
Of course, Colin.
It's on the. I asked how dynamic this can be, and with that, what I was trying to ask was, is this technology at the point where as new content is being created or received, and thinking of it from a classification perspective, how quickly does that get categorized? And I recognize that it depends. There's a lot of dependencies on them, but in a perfect world, um, can it be dynamic, or is it?
So dynamic is, I'm guessing, is how quickly it can be done. Is that okay?
I'll take basically, or
I'll take a first time response, and then Oday, feel free to chime in if I miss anything. The idea is that we can get to a point where it's real time. As a brand new piece of content is being placed into the places where we work, the machine, because it's supervising, will be able to, again, read through the content, read through the metadata, read through all of the different properties that the document has. And based on your file plan, right, there's going to be rules. We're going to have to tell the machine what to look for. That doesn't change. And so again, going back to the comment that Oday mentioned before, AI is not here to replace record managers. Record managers still hold the knowledge, and we just need to provide that knowledge, the direction of where to point the machine to. So again, the idea is that as content is being created, the machine is constantly looking for, and it's balancing it against your file plan. So let's use a financial institution as an example, right? If I have a mortgage application that is being created, automatically, maybe there's a heading in the form that says mortgages. And so I know now that this is going to be filed under mortgages. And if there's another set of data in there that can help me subcategorize it, then it will use the information within the form to make that decision and place it in the right category. So that is the ultimate task. And I believe we're very, very close to doing that. Not to sound salesy, but this is exactly where Colabware and Colabspace, our flagship product, is today, is being able to constantly supervise the data. And again, regardless of where the data has good properties or not, or regardless of where it sits, it can help the record manager to classify everything within an instant. Oday, did I miss anything? Anything else you want to add?
I think that's really it. I think once you've trained it on your existing data, anything that comes in that's similar, it's going to be dynamic. It's gonna it probably will identify it probably better than the original data set, because again, we talked about reinforcement learning, where and this is again another role I want you to think about. You're going to get AI, it's going to predict certain things, it's going to be wrong, and it's going to be really real to kind of go in and say where was it wrong and help course correct it. And as you do that over time, newer content actually might be brought in a little more accurately than the previous content. So there's definitely a lot of and the technology is there to be able to do it in that real time. It is already here, so that's there. I think one of the things you're going to see probably as we get to there's going to be a mixture of rules driven classification combined with AI classification. So I built a set of rules. Well, maybe the AI can confirm to me, hey, how closely does this seem to be to what this is in this category? Or is there a whole chunk of content in my organization that would be considered, invoices that we've been missing? Being able to give you that insight so that you can say, okay, you know what? Hey, for some reason, HR has been filing their invoices in their internal HR SharePoint. They shouldn't be doing that. Should be going to finance. So there are those other kind of not full-on implementation of AI you're going to also see, which is going to be it's going to be more kind of the insights side, also for the records manager, not just for the executive layer, that are going to be very helpful as well.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I've always found this topic very interesting, and when I think about it, people do a pretty bad job of categorizing data if they do it at all, right? So having something, but the issue I think has always been, I guess, two major issues: the accuracy, the probability that it's correct, it has to be pretty high, even though we do a shitty job of it as humans. But then also the dynamic question, I think, is important too, because if there's a lag in categorizing it, then there's going to be hiccups, and that will adversely affect adoption of the technology. So I know it's improved a lot over the years, and it's pretty cool. So
you're absolutely right, and again, it is not going to be 100% accurate, and that's where the reinforcement, that's where really humans come in. In the end of the day, our brains still run faster than these machines, no matter what you look at the compute power of human brain, it is actually still significantly ahead. So when you think about it, you probably have the ability to see where things went wrong. If you looked at overall, you know how to call it, and the machine needs someone to do that, because you have that experience, you have that ability to better understand why this is categorized a certain way. So working together, it takes away a lot of the mundane initial stuff, but definitely allows you to enhance it and build it up. And then also, you're able to do probably more wider compliance meeting in your organization, because you're able to tackle more areas that way. So yeah, no, definitely, we're definitely kind of like seeing it get there and stuff. But I think right now, this stage, again, I always talk about the AI enhanced records manager. So this is a time to put that hat on and see, tie in with what the organization's doing. We're seeing a lot of these programs being rolled out. So I think, I think it's also another area to look at it too, is to think about, records managers as the key holder to information in the organization. You have all that information in your organization. Everyone wants this data now. You want to make sure that they're using that data correctly. They're not breaking any laws. They're making sure that things that are, maybe there's some change to policy. Maybe we used to dispose of something after 7 years, but now from the executive layer, they want to keep it longer because they think that data is helpful for the AI to make better predictions for their business. Well, you can come out and say, well, okay, we're breaking this and this law doing that. So how do we do this? How do we gather the data from that, but dispose the records properly? So there's a lot of different things to think about right now. And I think I'm excited to hear, what everyone else is doing in their organization and how it impacts them.
Yeah, my vision has always been, compliance is a big challenge in records management. So to have like a records management terminator team to go after those non-compliant people.
That sounds a little intense.
Just a little.
I don't know if we should sell it that way. Terminator AI. That's
yeah. What does this team look like, Colin? Like, what is, I mean,
the importance of record information management.
Are they weaponized or
Excellent.
Any
other questions, or Colin? Is there something else that you want to add to your question?
No. This is great. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, if there's nobody else out there with questions or chats, I'll reiterate. Thank you guys for presenting and being a sponsor as well of our golf event and supporting our chapter. We really appreciate that. Appreciate everybody's time on the call too to jump in and joining us today.
And this will be on our events. This will be posted on the YouTube channel, right?
Yes. Yes, we're gonna get that recording and we'll post it on YouTube and visit our website for other events that we have coming up that we mentioned, and to get in touch with these two gentlemen. So
wonderful.
Thank you again.
Thank you. One last piece. There is a white paper that we'll make available for everyone in the chapter, or sister chapters. I understand there's people from other chapters joining us today, so we'll make that available for everyone to digest at your own time.
Great, very generous.
That white paper actually is up on our website right now, so people can go grab it. And encourage you to do so.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Well, thank you guys. Wonderful being here. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you.